and welcome to the Think MHK podcast presented by the Manhattan Area Chamber of Commerce. On this episode, you will hear from two of the 15 Under 40 recipients. The 15 Under 40 program selects 15 nominees each year to honor and recognize the accomplishments of outstanding young professionals who make a positive impact in the community and excel in their industry. We look forward to hearing their stories. Thanks for tuning in today. I'm your host, Jason Smith, President and CEO of the Manhattan Area Chamber of Commerce. Our guest today on the Think MHK podcast is another of our 15 Under 40 recipients and one of the people who was designated as one of our top young professionals in the community. And it is Alexis Glessner, who is Director of Quality and Patient Safety with Ascension Via Christi. Alexis, welcome to the Think MHK podcast.
Thank you.
So, Alexis, I feel bad. You were the only recipient who was unable to attend the reception we had where we honored the 15 Under 40 earlier this year. So welcome to the podcast. So at least I can in person congratulate you on winning the award.
Thank you.
So one of the things that we always ask our guests to do is to take a few minutes and just tell us a little about themselves and where they're from and how they ended up in Manhattan, and then maybe talk a little bit about your job and what you do for Ascension Via Christi.
I grew up in Council Grove, about 40 miles south of Manhattan. Growing up in that smaller community, we would always come to Manhattan for various reasons, and I've always loved the area and wanted to end up back here to raise my family. Out of high school, I went to Washburn University, where I became a respiratory therapist. I did that for a few years and ultimately went on to earn a master's degree in business and healthcare administration. So I now serve as the Director of Quality and Patient Safety for Ascension Via Christi Manhattan and Wamego Health Center, along with being the mission team chair in Manhattan. I have 2 children and now live out at Tuttle and enjoy Manhattan.
So from Council Grove, and so does your family still live, your parents and family still live there? Or?
My immediate family actually all moved to Manhattan, so we are all here now, but I do still have some family in Council Grove.
So you weren't impacted too much by all the road. It was hard to get to Council Grove for a while.
It was. It did not directly affect me.
So how did you end up with Ascension? What did you start with Ascension right out of Washburn, or did you come later?
No, I actually was at Stormont for a while, and I really just wanted to move back to the community and found a spot at Ascension and have really loved it. So I've been there about 7 years.
So you started your career in Topeka and then came back to I guess back to Manhattan. Was this the first time you'd lived actually in Manhattan when you started with Ascension?
Yes.
Okay.
Formally.
So to talk about what Director of Quality and Patient Safety does on a daily basis.
I oversee all of our quality reporting. So I do all of our regulatory work. I report everything to CMS and kind of handle our leapfrog survey, overseeing our quality improvement program, and our patient safety. We have event reporting, or serious safety events, that we handle some of the patient safety aspects of that, and diving into kind of the root cause analysis and how we're going to improve.
So I've actually been a patient twice at least of Ascension, and I tell Bob Koppel, who's the president and CEO of the hospital, how it has been one of the, for what considering it's one of the more challenging times of your life. It has been a very pleasant experience both times. So you're the person that I can thank for that, right? In addition to the team, and that's kind of what you try to make sure that the patients have a good experience. And so one of the things in your nomination, it talked about some of the recent awards that Ascension has won. Talk about, you mentioned the LEAP, and I always get it as a leapfrog.
Leapfrog.
Yeah.
Yes.
So talk about some of the certifications you've received and the awards that you guys have won.
Yeah. So the leapfrog survey directly looks at our CMS measures, and then we also do some attestation and different data submissions to Leapfrog themselves. And we did receive the letter grade A, so I think we have done that 4 times now.
Awesome. Congratulations.
So we are very happy with that score. Mm-hmm. We also have the CMS star rating has improved to be a 4-star rating, so that was big this last July. Mm-hmm. July of 23. That was released as
awesome.
A 4-star, so we were very happy with that.
Yeah, and so sounds like, at least for a community our size to have a facility like Ascension it's just incredibly important if we're going to grow and succeed. And so having those ratings and high scores is really good for us as we try to convince people to move here. So congratulations.
Absolutely.
So when you found out you were nominated, you had to fill out an application, and then ultimately you were notified that you won. So talk about how you felt both when you found out you'd been nominated and then later when you were notified that you were a winner.
I was surprised to have been nominated, so I was very honored to be selected in the healthcare community for what I do in my career and to benefit the community itself. Very much an honor.
So what is it that inspires you or motivates you to do some of the things that you do on a regular basis?
I am very motivated by working with others, having that strong network and a team to fall back on for support, plus those community-based relationships that really extend out of the workplace is important to me. I've really enjoyed meeting new people and networking with people through different ways in the community. I'm a part of the Hype group, and so attending those events has been a really fun experience. The Women in Business Book Club, and then most recently we have a Lunch Bunch monthly group that I'm a part of, and just kind of getting to hear what those other industries are doing in our community is really motivating. And then in my career, I would say that I really like healthcare and how it's an ever-changing environment, always learning and having new opportunities. And then in quality itself, we see a lot of the great work that we talked about that's being done, but we also have, the challenges that we see and the barriers that our patients face in the community, and having that vulnerable time and being a part of that is really inspiring to me.
So I'm going to go back to something that you talked about a little before. You got your degree initially as respiratory therapy, correct? And so did you go into that first?
Yes.
Did you do it? And so then you got your MBA and then moved into more of the administrative role. So was that transition hard, or do you sometimes miss it, or is like, oh no, this is what was meant for me? How did that work?
I would say it was very much what is meant for me. I really enjoy what I do in quality. I think I really kind of found my place more. However, the front line definitely is something that you miss. So kind of working those different hours, you were very much on your feet, very active, which fit really well with me. And you always were communicating with people, where sometimes now you're stuck more at your computer or your desk. So I think that was a transition and kind of establishing that new routine. You
mentioned you had a couple of kids. This schedule is probably a little more accommodating to raising children, I would imagine.
Yes.
So you made the decision to move to Manhattan 7 years ago, you said. Talk about specifically the things about Manhattan that attracted you here.
For me, growing up here, one of the things I wanted to do was raise my family here. So that was a big part of it. I really like the background of Manhattan, kind of the different, diverse backgrounds with the college, the military, the ag industry. I really like all of our local restaurants and businesses, but also, like you said, at the hospital, we do some fairly advanced things, but I also can tell you everybody's name when I walk down the hallway, and it very much has that small town feel, even though we are a little bit bigger and have more things to do than a true small community.
And you decided to live out at the lake. Did you grow up on the lake in Council Grove too then?
Council Grove has 2 lakes. I spent a lot of time at the lake growing up and really enjoy the lake.
My kids spend a lot of time at Council Grove Lake now, so there's a lot of Manhattan people that own homes on the lake there. So you're a lake person.
I am a lake person.
Okay.
Yes.
So what is it about Manhattan that makes it a great place to live and work and raise a family?
I really think for me, it's the people, the background. Like I said, the community just has that small town feel. You always know somewhere, and when you go somewhere. We recently went to the St. Patrick's Day parade, and my daughter recognized one of her friends from preschool last year, and so kind of got to catch up with that family, and they got to play and communicate while we were there. And so just really having those connections that are fairly easy to form in a community our size has been really special.
And so, and just to be clear, you said you went to the St. Patrick's Day, not the fake Patty's Day, right? That was
I took my children.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes, the St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, which is much more family friendly most of the time. Although the fake Patty's Day wasn't, I don't think, as bad this year as it's been in the past. So, as a award-winning now young professional, what advice would you have for another young professional that's getting out of school and either entering the workforce or starting a business or just kind of getting their career started?
Give it everything you have. It's uncomfortable entering a workforce and being new or trying to learn. You really have to be willing to embrace that, to meet others, extend the relationships in the community through whatever ways you choose to do that. Getting involved in areas that you're passionate about, kind of taking the time to establish what that really looks like for you as an individual, I guess would be my advice.
So one thing you mentioned earlier, and I don't think we promote it enough, but it's something that sounds like that you are taking advantage of and enjoy, is our Women in Business group. So the Lunch Bunch is that, now are you doing the Lunch Bunch through Women in Business, or are you doing it through Hype? As you're doing it through Women in Business?
Women in Business.
And then the book club is Women in Business. And so what's it been about that program that you have enjoyed and has been something that you've decided that you're going to put yourself in?
So it was very new for me. Like I said, it was kind of uncomfortable getting used to that environment. The book club that I did was about stress and burnout, kind of that compassion fatigue and how to overcome it with women in business. So I participated in that. It was virtual, but really just was able to form connections with people outside of healthcare and see how that looks in the communities. So
you have your own group that you meet with on a regular basis with that group?
Yes. So they assign you kind of a group and we meet once a month.
So that's the end of our formal interview segment. So we are moving into rapid fire. And so we have 10 questions that gets us, that allows us to learn a little bit more about you. Are you ready?
I think so.
Okay. Number 1, describe your perfect day.
I would say any day with family and friends, especially if we can be outside and on the lake.
Got it. What do you want people to remember about you?
I want people to remember that I was a good person, overall a good mother, and kind of those connections.
If you could go back in time for a day, what day would you go back to?
My mom and I did a sea turtle trek in Florida, just the two of us, right before I had children. Overall, just a great trip, but that day specifically was really unbelievable, watching those hatch and go to the ocean. So I would go back for that experience and hopefully get to take my children to experience that too.
What job did you want as a kid?
As a little girl, I would tell everybody that I was going to be an easy breezy, beautiful cover girl or a New York Rockette. But I changed that goal and went with a less glamorous career in healthcare.
What is your favorite or funniest workplace memory?
Healthcare humor can be unique. I think we are always laughing and joking about something. But I would say my favorite memory was my first boss's day in the quality department. My team got me a little cake, a plant, and a gift, and that was a really neat gesture and a special day for me.
What is the most unusual pet you've had?
I would say hermit crabs. Growing up, I had a pretty cool hermit crab tank.
All right. Where is the coolest place you've traveled?
I think that depends on what you call cool.
Mm-hmm.
I would say Cozumel was my favorite ocean water for the clarity and color. And we did a fun salsa making and salsa dancing class while we were there. Mm-hmm. So that was pretty memorable.
What is the most ridiculous thing you believed as a child?
My parents would tell my brother and I, anytime we visited the ocean, that it was safe to swim there because there was a large net that would keep all of the sharks away from the beach in the shallow areas. And I believed that a lot longer than I should have.
That's pretty good. Do you prefer working remotely or in the office?
I prefer interacting with people, so in the office for me.
And last question, and this obviously can be 2 answers. Your first concert and your favorite concert?
My first concert was Jason Aldean and Keith Urban in Wichita. However, I would say my favorite was Pitbull in Vegas for my mom's 55th birthday.
All right. Those are 2 completely opposite kinds of concerts, but they both sounded like a lot of fun. Alexis, congratulations on being selected one of the 15 under 40. I'm sorry that the date didn't work where you could be there, but I'm glad you were able to join us today. And again, congratulations on your win.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I got a new sister-in-law and went to her bachelorette party in Nashville. So
All right.
I appreciate you having me on the show.
The Think MHK podcast is brought to you by the Manhattan Area Chamber of Commerce. Don't forget to subscribe and like the Think MHK podcast on your preferred podcast provider, and you will never risk missing an episode. If you enjoyed our show, please give us a 5-star rating and leave a review. To find out more about today's topic or other chamber activities, please go to manhattan.org. And now back to today's show. Our guest today on the Think MHK podcast is another one of our 15 under 40 winners, Zach Sheppard with Charleston and Wilson Bonded Abstractors. Zach, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Well, first of all, congratulations on the award.
Thank you.
It certainly says something about what you've been able to do in the community so far, and not only being nominated, but of course being selected as well. But before we get into the details on that, we always ask our guests to talk about themselves a little bit and maybe their background and where they came from, but what they do in Manhattan and how they ended up here.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm an attorney. I'm one of the owners of Charleston and Wilson Bonded Abstractors here in town with 2 other attorneys, one of which, Todd Sheppard, is my dad, and then Callie Marks.
So you knew people.
I knew some people.
There you go. Nothing wrong with that.
Hey, it certainly doesn't hurt. I ended up in Manhattan because it would be easy, kind of like what you're saying, to think, well, he was always going to come back and work with his dad. I assure you, that was the last thing on my mind for forever. And then,
well, as someone with a dad, I can understand that.
My parents had me when my dad was in law school. Actually, my dad was a 2L at KU Law when I showed up. I don't know how he did it. I don't know how they did it. Getting through law school with an infant, but then he accepted a job at Charleston and Wilson here in Manhattan back in about 1993, 1994, and I've been around here ever since. Other than a couple of brief times away at an internship and then at law school. So
did you graduated from Manhattan High School?
No, I graduated from Blue Valley, Randolph, actually. I'm from just north of town here. The Blue Valley, not many have heard of.
That is, not very many people have heard of Blue. Yeah. They usually think of the suburb. So what made you decide to move out to Wamego?
Well, my wife, Taryn, got a job in Wamego, and we were looking for houses, and it was maybe 6 months or a year at least earlier than we should have been looking for houses because we didn't have any money. And put some offers in Manhattan on some places that we liked, and it didn't come through. And then we put kind of a Hail Mary offer in on this house in Wamego, and the seller accepted it, which I'm still surprised about to this day. And it really worked out. I love it over there. I love our neighbors, and I like our house, even if it has needed a lot of work.
Yeah, the people that I know from Wamego always talk about the sense of community that you have. And, people talk about it's difficult to find a house in Manhattan. I think it's the housing market in Wamego is very similar.
It's the same, yeah. And, I've been around here all my life, and it's interesting to compare Wamego now to what it was when I was a kid. I mean, I remember driving Highway 24. There wasn't any houses. It was just a 2-lane. And now Manhattan and Wamego, growing together. And, in my mind, they are so much the same community overall. And I mean, it takes me like 12 minutes to get to work from where we live in Wamego, which is great. It's like the perfect commute. Not too long, but a little time to decompress.
And you're going the correct ways, right? So you don't ever have to go into the sun. You're going away from the sun. So that's always nice too. I always feel sorry for the people that live in Manhattan who commute to Topeka or East, because that's a tough commute.
It really is.
So let's go back to the 15 under 40. So you obviously, and for people who don't know the process, you were nominated, and then we contact everyone that's nominated and ask them to fill out an application so that we get a better feel for the individual that has been nominated. But so how did you feel about being named one of the top professionals, and did you have a different reaction when you found out you were nominated to when you found out you won?
I was just thrilled. I love what I do so much, and when I learned I was nominated, it's great to just kind of be thought of for those types of things, especially for something like this, and to be accepted. I worked hard on that application, and there were some things that I talked about in it that I was very passionate about, and when I got picked as one of the one of the recipients. It just feels really good, and it feels really good to be recognized for hard work and things that you do. But it feels even better to be recognized with the folks up there who were recognized. To be included in the same breath as those names is really gratifying. I mean, it's a pretty neat deal.
So let's talk a little bit about how you ended up being in that position. So you said you're part owner in Charleston and Wilson Bonded Abstractor. So Callie has been on the show before, but for those that aren't familiar with Charleston and Wilson, talk a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, so we're a title insurance and escrow company. So we issue owners policies of title insurance, loan policies of title insurance. We do title searches, and we close real estate transactions. If you've bought or sold a house in the Manhattan, Kansas area, there's a very good chance you've worked with us, and we work a lot in the background. And we're doing our job really well. If you don't remember us, or if you didn't even see our name, then we've done our job well, and your real estate transaction went well without any hiccups. The joke I always tell realtors and lenders is if I'm emailing you or calling you, it's probably bad news, because it seems like the transactions that have problems end up on my desk, and then I get to make some of those phone calls. Well, it's like, hey, this house you're selling, I hate to inform you, there's going to be a little work involved. But, for the most part, it's really great. I wanted to stay out of litigation when I went to law school, and I wanted to stay transactional just because I knew with my personality, being in litigation in that competitive environment would be probably detrimental to my health. And I had discounted, though, a little bit how stressful real estate transactions can be, because you're dealing with a lot of people's money and their homes, and so that can be stressful as well.
Yeah, people put a lot of hopes and dreams in their real estate, right?
Yeah.
You're dealing with a very emotional time. So one of the things that's really cool that you all have done recently is upgrade your building, and so and for those that don't know, you have a facility. You have two facilities in Manhattan, correct?
Yep.
And one is on 4th Street.
Street.
And you redid that. Talk a little about that process, because it went from being, I hope you don't take this personal, but kind of 1960s dungeon to being a really modern, kind of a cool place to go into. So talk about that. Yeah,
you don't have to pull any punches there. That building was built back in the late 60s, and it was designed to be a bit of a bunker, and it had that feel. And you know how those things go. It was we had invested a little bit of money. Previous partners had invested a little bit of money in it over the years, but it had remained largely unchanged until we remodeled it just a couple of years ago. And so it was, for anybody who hasn't seen the building, I mean, just think blonde brick like you have a little bit downtown. There wasn't any windows other than in the door, and that place was pretty dark and depressing. The thing that I like this time of year a lot more now, because when I first started working there before we remodeled it, I don't think I would see the sunshine between about middle December to about now, because I'd show up, it was dark, I'd leave, it was dark, and we didn't have any windows in the building. And so that was pretty depressing, but we worked hard on getting it remodeled, and we've opened it up. It is, like you said, has a bit more of the modern feel, a lot more open concept. We got nice big windows in there, a lot of natural light, a really cool conference room, looks out over 4th Street, and it's just a great place. Yeah. I mean, I just love going to work in that building. Yeah.
And your other location in town is
Browning Place, over at Browning Place. Cool, great building too. Yep, I don't want to go work in it, because I don't think it's as nice as our downtown building, but yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. Congratulations on that, because it's really enhanced the downtown area.
Yeah.
And I know you have a lot of things that you volunteer. I know some of the things you talked about on your application, Boys and Girls Club, your church. I mean, why is that important to you to do those things?
I've been in this area my whole life, and for a while I had no big attachment to it. When I was young, I was just always looking for the next thing, whether that's to get out of Manhattan or get out of where I was. But since coming back, I've just fallen in love with this area, and being involved in things that I'm passionate about really adds a layer of richness to just my life overall, because I'm such a fortunate person in what I've been able to do, the life I've been able to build, and I love being able to work to make life better for other people, or do what I can just to leave a positive impression on people. And whether that's through my church, which I talked a lot about on the application, or the Boys and Girls Club, I was on their board for a long time, or Leadership Manhattan, which I'm not just saying this because it's Jason, but that's been my favorite thing that I've been involved with since coming to Manhattan. And that's not, I'm not denigrating any other thing I've been involved with, but I just find the Leadership Manhattan program to be so important. I made friends through that. I'm still involved with it on the board, and those things are gratifying to me. I like to be able to meet other people that share my same thoughts on giving back to the community and being an involved community member, because not only me, but these were things I learned from my parents and from Callie Marks, who's very, very involved, which is, we're not just trying to extract from this community and make a living off of it. We live here, and it's an important place, and it's really important to do what we can to make it better. And that's something I find to be really important.
You talked a little bit about this, but what makes Manhattan special to you?
Yeah, I don't want to say what everyone always says about Manhattan, but it just rings so true in the fact that Manhattan really walks that line between having a bit of a small town feel and having some big city options and amenities. It's so unique in that respect. It's changed so much since I was a child around here that it's shocking, but it's retained that small town feel. And then another thing I think that people discount about our Flint Hills is how beautiful it is. So take a drive down Zinedale Road, for example. I drive Zinedale Road to work. It takes a little bit longer, but I think it's just one of the most beautiful drives in Kansas. Or drive up and down Points Avenue and the leaves are changing, or go out to the Konza Prairie. I just think that, Kansas gets a bad reputation for being kind of ugly, but there's not a lot of that around here. I think this is just one of the most beautiful places in America.
We've talked about this on the program before, but as an organization that hosts a lot of newcomers to the community, it's always amazing. I always say we benefit from low expectations, because people have in their mind what they saw in Wizard of Oz and what they see, where I grew up, which is actually plains and everything's flat, and which I think has its own beauty. But people will come in and they'll see the hills and they'll see the trees and everything, and they'll just go, "Wow, this isn't anything like I expected."
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, it's beautiful.
Yep.
So I think that is an important part of who we are, and I think it's a good selling point. And you've chosen to stay here and start a family and be here. What were some of the reasons for that? I mean, you could go anywhere, right? I mean, attorneys can basically practice law wherever they want to practice law.
My wife wasn't crazy about the idea of coming back and living in Manhattan. She's from Harrington, and she had a little bit of what I had when we met, kind of thinking we want to go somewhere else and live and work somewhere else. But I started interning at Charleston and Wilson. I really loved the work, and it was a really good opportunity. And I kind of convinced her. I was like, we kind of got to give it a try. The best way to describe it for me, I didn't even have this feeling when I was a child, when I was a kid and growing up, but it feels like home to me now. We have family around here. I have so many friends around here, and it's the old Bill Snyder quote, right? About, well, why'd you choose to come coach at Kansas State University in the middle of nowhere? And he's like, well, the people. He's like, I stood on campus and the people were just asking me if I needed directions. They were asking me how I was doing, and we still have that around here that you don't have other places, and I like that so much. And the people I get to meet through my work and through my personal life, I just couldn't see myself living anywhere else now. I really couldn't. I love Kansas, and I love Manhattan in particular.
So what is it that inspires you, or what is it that motivates you to get up every day and do what you do?
Well, I spoke about this at the reception, but one thing I've tried to do, I have this idea, this picture in my head of the man I want to be, and that's derived from so many people in my life who've left an impression on me. Family members, my dad, my wife, both my parents and my grandparents, and then people that I've worked with, whether that's clients or customers or Callie Marks, for example, and friends that I have, and some people who don't even know me, but people who've set a good example in our community. I just feel strongly that all these people in my life deserve the best of me. And so I'm just trying every day to kind of live up to this expectation I have built in my mind of the man I want to be, of the person I want to be. And I feel like I owe it to the people who've kind of made me what I am, right? Because success is never all the way personal. And I've been through hard times where I've had people be really supportive, and I'll have those times again. And I have customers and I have family and I have employees, and they all rely on me to get up every day and have my A game, and I just couldn't sleep at night if I was shorting them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, it does. You talked a little bit about this, but as a fellow young professional, what advice would you have for a young professional who's just getting out of school and either entering the workforce or thinking about starting a new business? What advice would you give them?
Geez, thing where I've always been fortunate is you have to be a good decision maker, and I think if there is one thing that I'd tell a young professional, or if you were setting out on a new endeavor, or thinking about what you wanted to do with your life, you have to be really calculated with your decision making. And for an example on that, the story I always tell people about how I ended up becoming an attorney was I had a journalism degree at K-State. I wanted to be a journalist.
I had a journalism degree as well.
I was about 40 years too late.
Yeah, no kidding. I was about 20 years too late.
Yeah.
Although it's real quick, but it's actually kind of funny. I was going to mention it and then I decided not to. That's what your old office always reminded me of, was a newsroom.
Yeah, like an old newsroom.
Because there's no windows in newsrooms, right? They would lock you in there and say, "Get your job done." So it kind of cracks me up that that's you were a journalism major too. So.
Yeah, definitely. And I wanted to be a writer and be a journalist, be a print journalist. I didn't really want to be on television. I remember looking. It was my sophomore year, maybe it was my junior year at K-State, and I was walking across by Hill Library. I had my iPhone. I think it was at post BlackBerry, so I had my iPhone and I was looking at jobs because it's getting about that time. And you shouldn't base what you're going to do off of starting salaries. You really shouldn't. But I remember looking at both the lack of jobs that I would have been interested in and the ones that I was interested in, what they were paying. And one of them was like, I remember the description said it's something. The description said, well, this is like basically full-time, but not really full-time. Some weeks you'll work a lot, some weeks you won't. Starting salary is $20,000 a year. And I just remember thinking, I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I just don't know. And my dad had always told me, he's like, you should go to law school. He's like, you got a really good, you got kind of the skill set for it. The reading comprehension and the problem solving, you could really do it. And I'd tell him up until I must have been 19 years old the last time I told him, I don't want to be a lawyer. And then, a few years later, I'm a lawyer working for him. And it's just amazing how that works out. But it was such a blessing. And you just have to be calculated in your decision making, because every decision you make, basically from when you get into high school to when you get established in your career, it carries so much weight and has long-ranging effects. And not only do you have to be a good decision maker, is you kind of have to have a little luck involved with some of it too. And what do they say about luck? It's when hard work meets opportunity, and there's something to that. But that's the thing I always think about is you just don't be haphazard in the decisions you're making, because it just, there's too much weight on it when you're that age.
It's good advice, and congratulations on making the decision not to go into journalism. It took me about 10 years, and having my head kicked in felt like on a daily basis before I went, you know what, I bet there's a better way to make a living than to do this. So it's that industry's changed, but it's never been very glamorous, except maybe at the very, very, very top, the top 0.1%. So I'm sure your dad's proud, and you should be glad that you made the decision that you made. So, okay. So we're moving on to our rapid fire section. We have 10 questions that we're going to ask, and try to answer them as fast as you can. You think you're ready?
I think I'm ready.
Okay. Here we go. If you could only watch one movie or television show for the rest of your life, what would it be?
This movie called Palm Springs on Hulu, which is just
Andy
hilarious.
Samberg, right?
Andy Samberg, yeah.
I haven't had a chance to see it, but it's on my list. If someone paid you to write a blog or book about anything, what would it be about?
I'll have to keep this one quick because I could talk forever. I think it'd be about how people disagree, because you just see how polarized things are now, and I'm just vastly interested in how people talk when they disagree with each other.
What was your first job?
I worked on a pig farm.
Okay, you got to talk about that. Whose pig farm, and what exactly did you do?
Craig Good, he lives up by Oldsburg, Kansas, and he's one of the nicest people on earth. And mostly I did what you'd expect as a high schooler working on a pig farm. I ground a lot of feed fed a lot of hogs, and then I cleaned the nursery, and it was a nasty job.
Yeah. What skill would you most like to learn?
I always want to be better at golf, and so I think that's what I'm at.
That.
Yeah.
My goodness. Do you prefer working remotely or in the office?
In the office. I'm an in the office person.
Since the redo.
Yeah, exactly. Since the redo.
Yeah. What advice would you give the 19-year-old you?
Don't be too flippant with what you're doing, because I think I walked that line pretty good, but I got lucky too, and I think that I was a bit crazy back in those days, and so happy to have come out of it, and we're all good. But yeah.
Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, right?
Yeah, I can't argue.
Well, Zach, thank you for being on with us today. Congratulations again on your 15 under 40 designation, and good luck to you going forward.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Think MHK, a podcast produced by the Manhattan Area Chamber of Commerce. If you enjoyed the Think MHK podcast, we'd love for you to subscribe and share it out on your social media channels. Feel free to reach out to us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at the Manhattan Area Chamber of Commerce.